Five Nights at Freddy's is finally in Dead by Daylight, and with that comes a wave of new players. With old players coming back and Springtrap fans joining DBD, we hit a record high number of players on Steam on release day with 105,000 players. Whether you're brand new, coming back from a break, or you just want to improve your looping, we thought it'd be the perfect time to ask you to submit your own clips for feedback and tips. I've always felt like DBD feels really simple as an outsider, but once you start playing, you realize just how much there is to learn. Even with thousands of hours, I'm constantly learning, and in my opinion, that's what makes this game so fun. If you're brand new, DBD is a 4v1 asymmetrical horror game where 4 survivors must complete 5 gens, open the escape doors, and escape, all while evading a killer. Survivors must use windows and pallets to help buy time for their team to finish generators and escape. Now let's help our first friend, Keeks. Okay, it looks like Keeks is playing against Springtrap on the new map, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. She approaches a double pallet loop and goes for the short side on the outside. He swings and misses. And then she drops the pallet on the left. He raises his axe, preparing for a throw. She's doing a good job trying to dodge that. And then she drops the second pallet. As he's braking, she decides to leave the pallet loop. Okay, so to figure out what we could do better, we have to know the difference between an unsafe pallet and a safe pallet. A safe pallet is a pallet that you can safely drop without the killer doubling back on the pallet drop and getting a hit. They're usually a longer loop, and you can often force the killer to break the pallet. Take this car, for example. If you know your safe zone, you can play the down pallet safely by waiting until the killer crosses into your safe zone. As soon as you get an opening to leave, that's when you can connect into another loop. An unsafe pallet is one where you can't drop it safely without the killer possibly going around or doubling back for a hit. With unsafe pallets, it's also very unsafe to try to play the pallet once it's down. The animation of vaulting or dropping the pallet takes some time, which the killer can use to turn around and get a hit. In some cases, pallets might have a safe side and an unsafe side. The longer side would be the safe side, and that's the side you want to play in any looping situation. In this clip, Keeks found a double pallet loop, which can be very fun but risky. Against range killers like Springtrap, it's very important to break line of sight as much as possible. On this loop, that would mean playing the inside of the loop. By looping the inside, you can maintain a rock between you and Springtrap, and you can see him over the loop with proper camera control. Survivors have a third-person perspective, so you're able to see the killer over loops, unlike the killer who plays in first person. Because both sides of the loops are shorter, if you drop the pallet too early, the killer will be able to double back if they predict you're going to drop and get a hit on you. Because of this, it's very important to bait the killer into a stun the best you can. It's so important to get a stun on an unsafe pallet so that you can have a better chance at leaving the area. At unsafe pallets, I try to predict what the killer will do. They only have 3 options here. They either keep walking through the pallet, they raise their weapon for a throw, or they turn around and double back the moment they think you will drop. Because of this, it's usually better to run through the pallet. Once you've established a pattern in their head of not dropping, they're more likely to switch to the walkthrough approach. This is how you have a greater chance at guaranteeing a stun. Try to feel their movement and pay attention to any hesitation they do at the pallet, and wait until you see them commit to walking through. This brings us to our next clip. This video was submitted by Ivaline. Ivaline is in chase against an unknown on Macmillan.
Oh, it bounced on it. It bounced.
Okay, she's choosing to play the downed pallet. Normally this would be considered a safe pallet, but as you can see, Unknown has a ranged ability. Nice, she vaulted and he missed. Okay, he got another bubble on her.
Trying to bait him to go into it. Strong bounce.
Wow, that bounce actually ended up getting the injury off. And that was really close. She was able to get rid of her bubble before that connected. And again, she made him swing. Okay, let's talk about it. So normally this would be considered a longer loop, making it safer, but the killer Ivaline is facing is the Unknown, who has a ranged ability just like Springtrap. This is the perfect example of situations where you don't want to play the pallet. Because the best counterplay for range killers is breaking line of sight, anytime a range killer pulls out their power at a loop like this, it's better to run away. Killers usually slow down when they pull out their ranged weapons, and they're a lot easier to dodge the further away you are. This is the perfect time to get distance and use any trees or obstacles to hide behind as you're running away. Camera control is one of the most important skills as a survivor, so use your third-person camera to look behind you as you run away to avoid any flying weapons. There was also a moment during the loop where she actually made the killer swing at the pallet. This is the perfect opportunity to leave the loop and connect into a safer tile. The killer's all the way on the other side, so they either have to break the pallet, use their ranged ability, or go all the way around, which creates the most distance possible. Either way, this gives you plenty of time to connect to the next loop. In this case, it's also really risky sticking around because of the hallucination that's at the loop. Anytime the hallucination is standing straight up, the killer can teleport to the hallucination and get a hit if you're close by. You can safely loop around a hallucination if the hallucination is leaning over, because that means his teleport is on cooldown. But watch out, once the cooldown is over, he will regain the ability to teleport. With ranged killers, your best bet will be loops with tall walls. Things like jungle gyms, shack, anything that allows you to break line of sight as much as possible. Also pay attention to sound cues that tell you the killer's drawing their weapon, so you can be prepared to dodge their throw. Connecting loops is a great way to create distance during this time. Instead of staying at the loop while they're drawing their weapon, sometimes it's better to leave the loop entirely and create distance while they're slowed down drawing their weapon. This brings us to our last clip. This clip is from Kaiser Gaming. Okay, it looks like we're going against Oni. He's in his power. We know that because of the big red flame around him, which means he can dash very quickly. That animation right there was his power ending. And we're back to kind of like the same double pallet loop that we had before, but this one's a little bit safer because the rock is a bit longer. They did drop both pallets. Ooh, okay. So this is actually a great example of zoning. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, and now we're on a bit of a longer pallet loop with the pallet already down. This is quite a long pallet, so they're choosing to play it. Good fake there. This side's a bit longer, so that's probably the side I would play. Perfect. She forced him to break. So now we're connecting to an LT wall. Great job. Skip the T wall to vault the L wall, which is perfect. He vaulted and he's taking the outside. So she's actually able to get her vaults out of that, and she's connecting into a rock loop, which is perfect. Ooh, okay. She decided to stay at the loop and drop. Okay. Let's talk about this one now. So what is zoning? Zoning is basically where you as a survivor avoid zoning yourself by looping yourself into the edge of the map or towards dead zones on the map with no pallets. In this example, there was a moment where they were on the opposite ends of the loop and Yui stopped for a moment to see if the Oni would commit. This would have been the time to leave to avoid getting zoned. By staying, you risk ending up on the side that is against the edge of the map, and this makes it so you lose distance and chase. So let's show an example. If you're looping near edge map, if you loop in this direction, you'll end up dropping the pallet and end up on the side closest to edge map. This is tough because now you lose distance trying to get to the next loop. Instead, you should always be mindful of looping and trying to end up on the side with resources. You should loop in this direction to end up on the side closest to the middle of the map where there are more pallets and windows to work with. As killer, you're trying to push the survivor to zone themselves, and as survivor, you're trying to avoid being zoned. This applies to both edge map and areas of the map where pallets have already been used. You always want to push yourself towards areas with pallets and windows. Now let's talk about the LT wall chase. This is a great example of how you should loop an LT wall. LT walls are given the name because of their shape. Normally you want to loop the inside of the LT while baiting the killer to take the outside. This creates the most distance for you and allows you to get 3 vaults out of the loop if played correctly. However, because LT walls don't have a pallet, it's very important to link into a pallet as soon as you're able to. The mistake they made was actually just staying at the pallet and committing to the drop instead of looping around it. You will always buy more time by looping around pallet loops rather than trying to commit to the pallet drop. In some situations, you might be able to bait a swing, and that's a great time to loop back into the LT wall. Just like we mentioned earlier, having a shorter loop means it's even more important to get a stun, so looping around it rather than showing the killer you're committed to dropping is the best play here. Now, what if the killer had cut through the LT wall instead of going around like Oni did here? That's the proper way to play the LT wall as killer because it forces a survivor into a 50-50 situation. As a survivor, you want to use these check spots to make sure you have the best chance at winning the 50-50. Check spots are the part of the loop with the most visualization of the killer. As you go around the corner, try to watch him behind this wall to see if he's committing. If he doubles back, you can use that time to turn the loop back around for yourself if you can. LT walls are one of my favorite loops because they end up being a lot of mind games, and I think mind games are some of the most fun I have in this game. All right, hopefully these tips were helpful for you guys. Thank you to everyone that submitted a video for this. If you guys like this video, let me know in the comments and maybe we can do another one in the future. DVD also added an in-game creator code you can use to support me. You can now use code MISH when you buy Oryx cells to support me directly. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for the support.